Hello, welcome to Mr. Paul's Pantry. I'm Mr. Paul, and if you're new here, a very, very warm welcome. I hope to see you here more often. If you're returning visitors, it's nice to see you here again. Now, before we go any further, I just want to remind anybody, if you like the videos, go underneath, give it a thumbs up, and give it a like. Share with your friends on social media. That all helps me get more views by YouTube, offering it to more people. So I'd appreciate that. If you haven't already subscribed, and it's free to subscribe by the way, but when you subscribe and you see a little bell icon at the side of the subscribe button, if you click that, YouTube will just send you a little note each time I put up a new video, so you won't miss one. Okay, now back to today's recipe. Now, it's been requested by lots and lots of people over the years, but I've never got round to doing it. But just recently, a couple of people have really badgered me to put this on video. And one of them was a young lady called Pauline Harris. And she's asked me several times to put this up. And the other man was Jeffrey Winters. Now, Jeffrey... he's also asked me a few times on behalf of his wife as well as himself. So for you two, it's especially for you, but also anybody else who's requested it. It's for a cottage pie. Now, a cottage pie is a bit of a misnomer because I always believe pies have to have a crust at the bottom and a pastry crust on the top. But as this has been called a pie for many, many years all over the world, we're just going to call it a cottage pie. Cottage pies are made with beef. If you want to make one with lamb or mutton, then it becomes known as a shepherd's pie for obvious reasons. Anyway, mine's a cottage pie today, and I'm using minced beef. I like to eat my cottage pie two different ways. First of all, on a plate with some vegetables, knife and fork. The other way is in a bowl with a buttered crispy roll in front of the television with a spoon. And also there are different people who like to produce cottage and shepherd's pies different ways, as they do lasagnas as well. They seem to have an obsession, some people. It has to be a nice, even, geometrical square piece that doesn't fall apart when you lift it out of the dish. I don't think that's correct. Mine comes out as a splodge, and it's a lot tastier. But if you want to do it as a splodge, do what I do. I keep the meat part of it underneath moist, the potato on top not too moist. I don't put any milk or anything in it, just some butter, because that way they don't melt together as it's in the oven. If you want it to come out as a geometrical square, it doesn't fall apart, then you need to keep the meat part underneath dry and make your potato top softer, okay, so it isn't too dry. But whichever way you want to do it, that's an experimental thing you can do yourself. I make mine this way, and I've always done, and I always will do. So without any more ado, let's get on with Mr. Paul's cottage pie. So I've got the hot pan here. I'm putting in a couple of tablespoons of oil. You can use butter if you wish. I prefer to use oil at this stage. And once that's hot, then we're going to add the onions. And I finely chopped the onions, of course. You can use a food processor or chop them by a knife. It doesn't make any difference. Once those are in, give them a nice mix. Make sure their oil is distributed around the onions. And we need to cook those now for a few minutes until they're soft, probably 4 or 5 minutes. Now once we've got the onions nice and soft, we're going to add the meat. I bought butcher's mince this week. I didn't mince it myself. If you do buy butcher's mince, I don't buy it at the supermarket, but I get some minced at the butcher's. But make sure it has a little bit of fat, because if you don't have any fat, it'll finish up like sawdust. So that's going to go in the pan now, and I'm going to break it up and fry it with the onions until it's almost cooked. Now, once we have it to this stage, this is almost cooked, we need to add the vegetables. Now I've got my carrots and my swede. I've chopped them together. I have to admit I did them in a food processor just very, very roughly. Okay, so they go in next. And now I'm adding the celery. I've chopped the celery with a knife just roughly, but smallish. I don't want it too big. And give that a good mix also. Now this needs to cook for just 2 or 3 minutes. You don't need to give it long. I give mine 3 minutes, that's all. And at this stage I'm going to add some salt and some white pepper. I like white pepper in this particular dish. Now be careful with the salt, because if you're using stock that you've purchased, it may have salt in it, so have a look. If you make your own, like I do, it doesn't have any salt in. So I've put a good dose of salt and pepper here. Give it a good stir. We're going to add to that the tomato paste. This is, you may call it tomato puree where you live. Now give that tomato paste a good stir in. That's it. And the next thing we're going to add into here is the Worcestershire sauce. Now this really gives it a nice kick. It's a very nice addition to it. Just a Worcestershire sauce. And then we're going to put in mixed herbs. Now if you haven't got mixed herbs, or you can't buy mixed herbs where you are, I will put a list underneath of various herbs you can mix your own. But most shops sell a mixed herbs of something like herbs provençal or something like that. Okay, now give it a good stir. Make sure everything's incorporated. And the next thing to go in is the stock. In my case, it's going to be beef stock. Okay, now remember what I said earlier. If you buy stock in a stock cube or in a carton or something like that, if it's a cube, it will have salt in. If it's a carton, it may or may not. Have a look on the ingredients, but try and be careful with the salt if it's got a lot of salt into it. Okay, that's most important. Now this needs to be thickened in some way, and we're going to put in just a tablespoonful of plain flour here at this stage. Mix it round. You won't get any lumps, don't worry about this. And once it's all mixed and incorporated, that's when we're going to leave it now on a very low heat, a very, very low light, until it's cooked, probably for about 15 minutes. So after 15 minutes, this is the consistency that you should have. And like I said to you before, if you want it nice and dry and come out in a square piece, then you need to dry it off a little more. Now, I'm using a square oven-proof dish. You can use what you want, round, square, make individual ones if you want, if you're living alone, and freeze them. It makes no difference. So once this is in like this, you need to let this meat cool down, because if you put the potato on top while it's hot, it will start sinking into the meat. So we don't want that. Now, I'm sure you don't want me to show you how to mash potatoes. I'm sure you've done plenty of that. But one thing I don't do, I don't add any milk or cream, anything like that, to this mashed potato. A little salt and possibly some butter. That's all I do. That's because I don't want it too sloppy so it doesn't sink into the meat. Now, when the meat's cooled, you can start and put on the potato gently. Just gently to start with. And once you've got all the top covered, then you can start and spread it out, just teasing it with a fork like I'm showing you now. Now it's all ready to go in the oven. There's nothing else to do. Some people do put grated cheese on top. I don't do that, but that's entirely up to you. So it's going to go into the oven now for just about 10 or 15 minutes, just to brown and crisp the top. So here it is, straight from the oven. It's nice and crispy on top, and I'm going to serve that with some steamed broccoli and some sautéed leeks, and it'll make a beautiful meal. If you've enjoyed the video, go underneath, give me a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed, do so, and every time I put up a new video, YouTube will tell you. So this is all I have time for today, and it's bye from me, from Mr. Paul, and I hope to see you all again soon. Bye!